Welcome to Witch Talks, the series for spiritual seekers, witches, and enlightened souls. I'm Hana the Suburban Witch, professional tarot reader, astrologer, and witch, and I hope you're ready to get up close and personal with your favorite witches. Hello, darling. Welcome. Thank you for sharing your energy with me. I hope you're doing well today. Before we jump in, just a heads up that about halfway through this interview with Scott, there is a controversial topic that comes up. I want you to listen to what he says about that, and we'll chat about it at the end. So don't cancel me because it comes up during the interview. We'll talk about it, okay? We're keeping an open mind here, guys. The deck is really cool. There is an unboxing video coming to my YouTube channel this Friday, and then you can see all of the cards. I flipped through all of them. And let me know your thoughts around this controversial topic. Oh, how's that for like a little teaser? So, enjoy, and I will chat to you at the end. In this episode, I am chatting with Scott Bergman, the creator and designer of the Millennial Tarot deck. Scott created the Millennial Tarot with the overall goal of making the esoteric more accessible and concrete. I'm so looking forward to sharing Scott's work and wisdom with you today, so let's get into it. He is joining us via Zoom all the way from New York in the US. Hey, Scott, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much for having me.
I'm very excited that you're here. I recently got a copy of this deck, and when it first came out, I remember like, this is the coolest thing ever. And I run a small group membership, which is called the Suburban Witches Society. And one of my members got her hands on it before I did. And so she did like this cute little like flick through in our group chat. And let me tell you, I was very, very jealous. So I'm so happy to have this on hand and to chat about it together with you. So I want to start by asking, what led you to develop the Millennial Tarot deck? I'm presuming you're a millennial yourself.
I am. Yeah. What do you consider yourself?
I'm a millennial as well. Yes, definitely.
Okay. So we can get to the nitty-gritty of being a millennial.
Yes.
It's a long story, so I don't know how detailed of a version to go into, but
just like as speak freely, and if you like if it goes too long, like I can always edit stuff out, but I probably won't. So go speak
All
your
right.
truth.
So this is the full story then. Feel free to jump in with questions. I think it was like 2015, 2016 or so. I was living in San Francisco. I was working in tech. I was working as a designer, and I myself was getting into like meditation and I guess I would say like spirituality. But San Francisco is like comically like spiritual almost, or it felt kind of insincere. But I just noticed like I I noticed all these millennial archetypes around me essentially that felt like versions of like modern versions of what we're doing as like a spiritual practice sort of thing. And really it came down to I went on this date with this lovely woman who was like very into Soul Cycle. And for her it was like a transcendent experience, like cycling, is how she would describe it. And I just remember leaving and thinking like the soul cyclist, as like this is like for her religion is showing up every couple of days and like doing this class in the morning. Um, and it just like made me start thinking of other kind of funny millennial archetypes. I think another one I came up with was like the urban farmer and the barista. And I started to think like these sound like, like tarot cards. They sound like archetypes in tarot. And I didn't really know that much about tarot at the time. So I was planning on quitting my job. I was living like a very quintessential millennial existence where I was paying rent in San Francisco, wanted to quit my tech job. I had thinking of doing a side hustle, trying to make passive income from it. Decided to do van life and lived in my van, in my car, my Subaru, for like 3 months in the Pacific Northwest, in the States. And then I lived in like a Buddhist monastery retreat center in Oregon, and California, and learned how to build off-grid houses. And then after like 8 months of doing all that, came back to New York, where I'm from. And so it's just a lot of like millennial experiences, and I turned this into just like a 22 card major deck. I had like stock imagery at the time, but it was just like the core kind of like first funny cards I could think of. No guidebook. I actually just wrote the text on the back of each card, which was like very taboo, and I've been scolded for it many times. Um, and that was like the very first version. And over time, I was just like selling it on Etsy. Um, and people kept saying like, I thought that it was just gonna be people like millennials who were like would buy it as just like a fun little like gift, but like not really use it. And people were using it and were asking for like a full deck and a illustrated deck. And so after some time, I started working on it and eventually turned into the deck that I've got now. And then just like a year ago, got a publishing deal for it. And so it just got re-released in October. It's like a way higher quality deck with the guidebook and like a magnetic enclosed box. Um, so now it is the deck you have in front of you. But it was a unexpected journey
I love
that just
that.
developed over like 7 or 8 years. Yeah.
I love that. And as you're saying, you're like, I did fan life. And I'm like, you're just like literally saying the cards, right? So you're living through these archetypes, which is such a wonderful way to really connect with them as well. So you weren't really fully, I guess, into tarot. You knew of it. Did you start reading other tarot decks yourself whilst you were mulling over the idea? Or like how did you become familiar with
Yeah.
the traditional tarot meanings?
Yeah, totally. So once I realized like, oh, this is going to be like a real thing, I need to actually like learn this and understand this and do this and have it done for me. And I started just like reading a ton of other guidebooks. And I basically, and also like watching YouTube videos to like learn all the cards. And I ended up making just, I'm like a very uh, systematic kind of person. And so I made a spreadsheet of like all 78 cards and like the description across like tons of different decks and like from books and what people were saying. And then just started like analyzing what I thought all of those, like what was common across all of these, like what was like the true theme and all of this. And then just had to start figuring out like what is the pinnacle of the millennial experience that most matches this theme and is like sums up the idea of this card. And so I made a list of like, I want to say it was like 800 terms or something. Just like closing my eyes, just like thinking of term after term, and then going through like websites, going through Urban Dictionary looking for terms. And then I started connecting the dots between them. So I learned tarot a little bit like trial by fire. Um, but it was just, yeah, reading, watching videos, and then having a couple of readings done for me as well. Um,
Amazing. And that is
yeah,
such an analytical way to go through it. And it's exactly what I would do as well. I've got
yeah,
so many deck ideas and they're all in like Notion documents and then they progress to the Excel spreadsheet. So I totally get you on that one.
you gotta check out Airtable. Airtable is like the pinnacle to me of organization.
Ooh,
So
oh,
give
I
that a
don't know.
try.
Don't know if I could give up my Notion. My Notion is like my entire brain on the
That's fair.
computer.
That's what Airtable is to me.
So do you use tarot for say like prediction, fortune telling traditionally, or is it more introspective for you? How are you using it yourself?
Yeah. So for me, I like the introspective direction more. And part of it is it feels like too high stakes for it to be like a future predictive tool. I had a reading done for me where I was seeing this woman who I met in the Buddhist monastery, and it was like really intense. And then, she lived overseas, and like it was like, are we going to continue? And this reader like pulled this card and basically said, like she is Christian, Buddhist also, but it was like there's someone in your life where if you continue talking to them, like you will convert to Christianity. I'm not Christian, and I was like that is really specific and really
Mm-hmm.
intense, and like that sort of like dominion over my future like freaked me out.
Mm.
Um, and so I kind of went back from that, like took a step back and found that like I'd done other readings that were like much more just introspectives, kind of thinking of it as like what associations do I have with this card? like what comes up, what stories of my past and what's happening right now feel like they're relevant to what's being talked about, and what do I want to explore given that topic. Um, that's kind of how more I see it now for myself. And also, I think this deck, like, what is so great about it, just to say that there's some great things about the deck, um, is that I think people who have never done tarot before intuitively understand what each of the cards mean. And I think it being a tool for introspection and like looking at your own like what's going on in your life is an idea that's more accessible to more people because it doesn't require buying into like a belief system that isn't formed inside of them or in their head. And so I have really just kind of taken that stance with the deck and kind of wrote the guidebook like for that, so that it truly like I think it's a shame if people would use the deck and would get really great insights, but like are afraid to use it and pick it up because it feels like something that they're not comfortable doing. Whereas everything else is accessible. So like I didn't want to ruin that one other thing by making it something that they, didn't feel comfortable with. So I really kind of took the stance of like a tool for introspection.
Yeah. And look, I love that. And I think one of the greatest misconceptions about tarot is that it is just for fortune telling. But like, I use the tarot to write stories and to plan out plots and like get my creative juices flowing. Like, what could this character be if they were a character? Like, there are so many tools outside of fortune. I still also use it for fortune telling because I
Yeah.
love that part as well. But there is so much more to it as well. And I do agree, this is so accessible. So I've pulled out some of my favorite cards, and then I want to
Cool.
ask what your favorite card is. And like, I,
Yeah.
I have a whole pile here. I can't choose, I can't narrow it down. But I think, for example, like they are really uh, accessible in this like archetypal type of way, but this modern millennial archetype type of way. So, for example, four of feels, and you've changed. Oh, we should talk about that as well. We will in a second. You've changed cups to feels. And in this one, it's got binge watching, right? So binge watching. Now I've been on bed rest for the past couple of weeks, and I tell you what,
Oh,
this card came up like so frequently, and I was like, because I don't do bed rest well. I don't do rest well. I'm a constant mover. So the fact that I needed to, and this kept coming, I was like, fine, I will put on another episode of Smallville and I will watch some more TV. Like it was a really good like little reminder of like actually how you need to rest. So this was it
yeah.
is so fantastic. Whereas the standard four of cups, like yes, you can get that meaning from it, but this was just so clear. Like this was so clear. So it was a really fun deck. And I was saying to you earlier off air that when you go through like something a little bit tricky, like health issues and stuff like that, having a deck that is a bit more fun and lighthearted, like I feel this is just so helpful. It is so helpful. Some of the other really interesting ones. So and it just makes me laugh. See, I'm laughing even looking at it, and this is not my first
Good.
time looking at it.
I'm
Um,
happy. I'm happy to hear that.
King of Thoughts. So thoughts are swords, right? That's the air
Yeah.
quality, and you've labeled it grown ass man. And I just think it's great. It's so funny. Whereas King of Vibes, which is the fire element, wands element, is big D energy. So like they're just the court cards are some that are so tricky. I teach her how to read tarot class. I have a lot of mentees that I mentor through learning the tarot, and the court cards are so tricky, but like giving them a modern archetype that is not a king or a page or a princess is just
Yeah.
so helpful. So I think you've done a really, really good job with that. What was one of the dumpster fire as the
Okay.
tower? Like it's the lingo that we're all really familiar with. So it's accessible, and it does remove those barriers that people have to those, I guess, more esoteric themes that we'll find in a traditional like Rider Waite Smith or even like a Thoth deck or something like that, where it is a bit trickier to come up with a modern take on it if you're not familiar with it. The barrier to entry is much lower with this, which I think is wonderful. It makes it a great beginner deck, and also for
Okay.
people that are a little bit more experienced as well. So tell me a little bit about your process in terms of changing things, because we've got different names for the suits themselves. What was your thought process on shifting away from the standard?
Yeah, I will answer that, but I also want to talk about those cards
Yeah, yeah,
that
go
you,
for
or just
it.
in general. Something that I've noticed is like because it feels so lighthearted, that people like expect it to just like they don't expect much.
Hmm.
And I think because of that, people's like barriers are down and like they feel disarmed. And then they'll have a conversation, like it'll get super deep, like because I think people like don't expect it to. And like
Mm,
before they know it, they're talking about like, crazy stuff and revealing, things that happened to them like years ago. But it's because like it starts off by just laughing. And I think that's like wasn't intentional, but ended up being very cool seeing that happen like over and over again. That
mm,
just like these really disarming cards let people actually be a little more vulnerable and like get deeper because they're not like worried.
yeah. That
Uh,
playfulness is such an open energy. Whereas as soon
yeah,
as we, get too serious, sometimes that can block people. The same with when they're learning and also when they're, being the querent or reading for themselves. As soon as you get like too serious, even if it's just about trying to be correct and get the meaning correct, and you get too
yeah.
serious about that, blocks everything. But playfulness is just this big, expansive, open energy, and it feels, you know, lighter and easier to bring up those things. So yeah, definitely
Yeah.
that's a
And
big
even
part of it.
knowing that, like even knowing that playfulness opens one up, it's hard to like force yourself to be playful.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so yeah, so it's cool that when you get the dumpster fire instead of the tower, you're like you can handle it,
Yeah.
which is good.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Um, in terms of changing things, so yeah, I changed the suits. I added these names to it. I changed the imagery. Um, the suits, for a lot of different things, I felt like if I didn't intuitively know what it meant as a millennial, then it's worth like considering changing it, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But I still wanted it to be usable by people who are experienced in no tarot. So that's why, all the original cards are there. And I also kept the imagery of like on the grown-ass man. You can see that there is a sword there, even though it
Yes.
says thoughts. And that was just so that you still know like what suit we're talking about. Even though I called it something different.
Yeah,
I read in like,
I said that in the unboxing video that I did. Each of them, and you won't be able to see if I hold it up to the screen here, but on the unboxing video, it's like top down, easier to view. For example, I've got four of vibes, and there's a little wand next to it, so a tiny little symbol of a wand, so you know that that's the four of wands. It's then underneath that it says went viral. And then in the top right hand corner, there's a little circle with an image of a fire. So we know fire element. So even if you miss the wand, you've got the fire element there. And in the top left, you've even got the glyph for Aries. So we know that this card is ruled by Aries. So that was also really wonderful to see because
yeah,
knowing those zodiac associations and the planetary associations is really helpful for a lot of people with that astrological knowledge when they're coming in through the tarot as well. So
yeah, totally.
I thought that was fantastic.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah. I figured, like you can go as deep as you want to, or so like if you know that other stuff, you'll see it there and,
Yeah.
and it's helpful. Um, yeah, so the suits, the vibes, feels, thoughts, and swag. Swag was a tough one to figure out what the right term was. I feel like it's
Mm-hmm.
already like a little, I wouldn't say outdated, but like used less than it was just like, a
I
couple
feel
years
like
ago.
millennials are getting a little bit outdated, so that kind of
Oh, we
also
are
tracks.
totally. Yeah. I mean, you know, suburban witch, like it used to be like, oh, we all lived in cities and like now like all we're all looking for houses and like
Yeah.
but we can't afford it, we're renting still, and we grow up and our lives change, so hopefully the
Hmm.
jokes stay. I tried to
Hmm.
pick the things that were like gonna last, but it's tough to know. Only in hindsight will we really know.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
um yeah.
So swag was hard to come
Yeah,
up with. Was there any other ones that felt tricky?
a bunch of them felt tricky. There are certain cards that I just feel like even still I don't have like mastery over. I don't have like
Hmm.
a great understanding. Um, like Temperance is one that I always kind of struggle with. Let's see here. Judgment also. So
Judgment is a
Judgment
tricky
being,
one for a lot of people.
yeah. So it ended up being quarter life crisis.
Hmm.
I can say. So I felt like, the sort of like existential crisis, like the spiritual angst of like uh I don't know, kind of like waking up and I don't know, either waking up or like staying in your story,
Hmm.
and not waking up from your story. So I definitely some of them
What?
like struggle to figure out what that card was, and other ones there were a couple where the card name could have gone either way. I think like the 9 and 10 of vibes of
Hmm.
wands.
Hmm.
I think it's like if I can remember what it is.
We had
Uh,
burnt out for tenor vibes.
yeah, very good memory. I think on edge
Mm.
is 9, if I recall. I'm actually working on the Gen Z version right now, so like in my head are all of the Gen Z information, which is
So
why like I have to.
is instead of it being swag for pentacles, is it going to be like Riz or drip?
So those are both possibilities. We ended up going with guap.
With what?
Guap. Guap. I didn't even
I
know what it was
I've
really.
never heard that word before.
Yeah.
That's crazy
So
Gen Z kids.
so I like the millennial version was like all me, but the Gen Z version, I tried making like a first version and showed it to some people and they were just like, this is not it. Like you totally missed it. Like you don't know
Which is
anything.
so millennial to do
And so
that.
Gen Z also to respond to a millennial.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I I hired a Gen Z writer and we just like worked together going through like all of the cards and just like debate the meaning of cards and look stuff up and then we'd poll like all the other Gen Z people we know to figure out like which one felt more perfect for like the description and I think it's really good. I think it's going to be even funnier than
That's
the
cool.
millennial one.
So
But
will there eventually be like a Gen X and a boomer? Well, a boomer tarot?
yeah, I floated the idea by the publisher, like for the Boomer one, and it was just like a light, like putting it out there, and they didn't seem too keen on it.
Hmm.
Uh, so
Hmm.
my guess is that's not going to happen.
I
But
feel like even just calling it a boomer tarot is anti-boomer. Like the boomers wouldn't like it.
yeah, right. I mean, like, okay, Boomer is like what we say or Gen Z
Yeah.
says to
Yeah,
them.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm trying to think that's like my mom's generation. Like, what would she actually, if she bought she wouldn't buy something called the Boomer Tarot. She'd buy something like, I don't know, that made it sound fancier than what it is. Anyways,
totally.
she would totally, if there was things that were like relatable to her, that would absolutely, she would buy that. Um,
I think it's doable. I think,
mhm.
just hire a Boomer writer and work with them and we could do it. I'm open to it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to happen.
Which, did you do the artwork for the cards as well?
Yeah, so the artwork is I worked on all of it, but it's a combination, and this is important to say, it's a combination of AI and of me.
Hmm.
So it's like hours and hours in Photoshop making it, but the base of it started off using an AI image, which I created. And I mean, it took me making like thousands of AI images to get one that like looked good. So it
Hmm.
was just and not using anyone else's like I use no other artist names and no other artist artwork, and then it's just like using words to like gradually change it and change it and change it and then take what I create and put it back in until it starts to like change forms.
Hmm.
um and it's like I know that's it's a controversial thing for many people, but I've done art my whole life and done design and I was really excited to use the technology and it was
Hmm.
incredible.
Hmm.
And I know people are concerned about like water usage and I looked into it and to train like all the models requires a lot of water usage, but to actually produce the images is all the images I created is about as much as a
Hmm.
15-minute shower.
Hmm.
That's how much water was used, which I felt
For
comfortable with
all of them total?
for all of them total, all the
Okay.
images I created.
Okay. That is good to know.
Yeah, because yeah, I mean all materials like involve water. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so then it was a lot of hours in Photoshop
Hmm.
and then getting edits and then going back in them. And this is the final result.
Yeah, because they, I mean, they look really cool. I'm gonna hold them up. So anyone who's watching on the video can see I'm holding up the patriarchy, which is the emperor card. And I will say I do like that you've got your name, but still the original name there. That does make it a lot easier. And
Yeah.
they're all kind of, what's the word? They have the vibe of almost, what's that? Like scrapbooking vibe, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so
The layering.
that patriarchy card, if you hold it up again, it's about it's something like 8 different photos that I photoshopped together, which is
Mm-hmm.
probably why it looks a little bit scrapbooked. You have like the city in the background, the man is a separate image, the gavel that I replaced his head with is a separate image, the court, like Supreme Court justices on the sides are a separate image. The bar graph that you see, kind of like on the city, is a separate image. The
Mm.
certificate in the middle is a separate image. And then all of that was like, plus like painting on it and photoshopping it. So it all kind of came together and looked like a semi-cohesive
Mm-hmm.
image. So it's a lot of compositing. And
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and it does flow, like the colors all flow together. It doesn't look like it's a bunch of images all stacked together. Even this one as well, which is Six of Fields or Six of Cups, and you've called it
yeah,
throwback, and that's got the Nintendo. Is it Nintendo? No,
Nintendo-ish. It's kind of
Nintendo-ish
like a
console.
SNES. Yeah, I didn't want to copy
Tamagotchi.
it verbatim.
Yeah, fair.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, Tamagotchi, like photos, like all of the throwback feels, right? And it does
Yeah,
it sort of feels layered, like it has all these deeper layers in it, which all of the pieces I find feel that kind of way. They're almost slightly scrapbook-esque, but not every single one of them, just some of them. And then they've got this surreal quality to them as well.
yeah, I agree.
A little bit of surrealism in there, thrown in there. What's your favorite card?
It's a good question. I haven't thought too much about this one. There's a bunch that I like, obviously, hopefully. Um, when people ask me about the deck, I always tell them about the fuckboy
Yep.
because like it gets an immediate reaction. As does the dumpster fire. I really like the ick, which is the five of
Mm-hmm.
field.
I think
It's
I
like a
pulled that
trash
into my favorite ones as well because I thought it is. Yeah, it is. It's the trash can. Yeah.
can. Yeah. So it's like a heart coming out of a trash can and smoke.
Mhm.
Um, what else do I like? I like self-care was like one of an early ones. Simple. Um, I know my fiance loves the Who Run the World card,
Mhm.
Queen of Swag.
Yep.
But it's funny, talking about like having to update this in a couple of years. This was kind of got like Beyonce vibes a little bit
Mhm.
in terms of like
Mhm.
who I was thinking of and like the term "Who Run the World." Comes from her card, and like if they all get canceled, I'm gonna have to come up with like a new card for that in a couple of years. So
Yeah. Yeah. Or even just like the way celebrities go. I mean, it'll be like Chapel Roan or something like that. Like it'll, have a new iteration or Taylor Swift or someone, like someone else steps into that spotlight stage.
totally. Yeah, I
Mm.
had a bunch like in the older versions, and every time I had someone famous or some like company or something that was mentioned, inevitably something would happen where it would change, where they fell out of favor, or like I had Twitter and it became X, you
Mhm.
know. Um,
Mhm.
so it was a lot of figuring out like what is timeless about a millennial
Yes.
versus what's like the flavor of the week sort of thing, or the joke, the meme right now.
Yeah, almost having to take away all of the specifics and just similar to like that Nintendo-esque sort of game controller, some people might look at it and be like, but I had a this. But that's kind of the vibe is it's anything, it's in this like little cloudy sort of look.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
except the Tamagotchi. That one's actually
yeah,
like a Tamagotchi.
you know what? Santa got my kid a Tamagotchi, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever to get from Santa, but apparently it's
Yeah.
not. It's
Are
definitely
they
not.
still making Tamagotchi?
Yeah, I honestly I think they brought them out for the millennial parents to live
Uh-huh.
through, because my kid's just kind of like, this thing beeps a lot and there's not much you can do with it, and then it dies.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Santa was in trouble that year.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Totally.
Yeah, the back of the cards, you've got avocados.
Hmm.
We've got avocados, and you've got the little symbols for each of the suits. So I was surprised there was no avocado card. I was like expecting like a, I don't know,
You know,
I guess the back of the card is still technically kind of like a card.
you can only make it so stereotypical until it becomes like a caricature of itself, you know? Like I wanted people to resonate with it, but not feel like it was making fun of them or
True.
like it was by some corporation saying like this is what we think millennials like, you
Mm,
know. Like it was just by me, and I just thought if it was all avocados, like that'd be a little much.
yeah.
So I toned it down a little bit. But yeah, I've been trying to figure out what the Gen Z kind of icon is, and right now we have like a melting Earth as the sort of motif,
Yep.
which
Yep.
yeah, it's like a smiling, laughing, melting Earth.
It's
Which
bad because you kind of hear that and you go, oh, yeah, like that's so sad that that's what that is. And we got
right, that it's a thing.
avocados. Like,
Yeah, yeah, right. Yeah, we have a much
oh, w-
cheerier icon.
yeah. Were there any ideas that you really loved that didn't make it into the deck?
Yeah, more the guidebook. I think they cut out like the publisher cut out like a third of what I wrote for the guidebook.
Yep, that's always fun.
And yeah, and I will say it reads much like tighter and sharper and better now.
Hmm.
And it's still like the longest guidebook they've really had for this format. Um, I don't remember.
It's
It's
136 pages, but like these are tiny little pages.
yeah, but there's also like a 15-page intro or something that isn't counted in that. Um,
Yeah, I see. Yeah, with
it's like
spreads and things.
156 total or something.
You've got like different spread names. There's one called Spreads in the City.
Yeah,
I thought it was really funny. It was really, really clever. So, and yeah, you've called it like card deets. Like it's accessible and it's funny. And every card in the guidebook has like a TLDR, which is
mhm.
also really funny. And then there's the sitch, real talk, and reverse, reverse, and then some hashtags as well. So I thought that was really great. Like the hashtag actually is so wonderful in terms of like keywords for each of the cards, which sometimes is
Yeah.
something all you need really to tune into it, or you can go deeper in the guidebook as well. So what got cut out that you really wanted to put in there? Was it just the third of, effort and love that you put into that got cut out, or was there a specific
Yeah, a
spot?
little more. One is a lot of the hashtags are actually words that I didn't end up choosing for that card.
Oh.
Like they also could have kind of worked for that card, but I didn't end up
Mm-hmm.
going with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I had a whole part of the intro that I really liked, which was kind of explaining all of these like spiritual, mystical terms in like
Mm-hmm.
just kind of normal language. Um, and I put a lot of my like sort of like Buddhist thought into it. There's a lot of overlap between Buddhism and witchcraft, I think, in terms of like the beliefs. There are some like divergences also, but
Mm.
uh, and just talking about like what I think manifestation is in like everyday terms and what I don't remember everything that I kind of went through, but I put like a lot of time and heart into it, and it's something that like I want people to know,
Mm.
but it all got scrapped.
Oh.
So
Could you put
I was
that
like,
on like your website as like a behind the scenes?
I think I've started to put a little bit of it on the blog. I think I
Mm.
released some of it on the blog. I don't know
Yeah,
if anyone reads the blog, but there is a blog.
absolutely. Put it out there. People will come. Blogs are making a comeback,
Yeah.
especially with all the social media drama. As at the time of
Uh,
recording this, we've had, TikTok went down for like 12 hours and then came back. So a lot of people mass exited. Did you
for
did you
you
miss that?
too?
No, not for
No.
us, just for the
Okay.
US,
Okay.
which,
Got it.
you know, yeah, we were fine. And it was funny because the algorithm was suddenly showing me lots of like local creators. I was like, where have these people been?
Yeah,
And
that's
then the
kind of
next
cool.
next morning, US was back again. Um,
Uh,
but I know a lot of people left, TikTok, or they've left other, meta platforms and things to explore blogging again and explore, there's Substacks getting big and podcasts and
yeah.
YouTube and all of this. So I think that long form, longer lasting content is definitely making a big a
Yeah.
big comeback. So that kind of content can be really useful And I mean, then you get your
Yeah.
keyword searches. I'm a huge proponent for blogs. I think blogs are great. That's where I get most of my visitors for my website.
Oh
So
yeah. Oh, cool.
yes,
That's good to know.
100%. Blogs are good.
I'm a huge proponent of just like individuals being able to have a business that sustains them, that they can work from home and like
Hmm.
I just think there's more tools than ever for a person to be able to like create something and have other people find it. And I think that's an amazing thing. And I hope it just like continues.
Mm.
Because like I don't know, working a corporate life kind of sucks from
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. So are you like doing writing and creating and all of this sort of stuff full time, or is this your side hustle?
It's like my medium hustle, I would
Medium hustle.
say.
Mm.
Um, I'm working hard at doing the kind of like solopreneur life.
Yeah.
I'm just like doing anything to not go back to the corporate world. Um, so I have a small like software company that I started and trying to get off the ground also. But really, all of the stuff that I'm doing, including Millennial Tarot, this small company, is all really to try to have enough like revenue coming in that I can work on like my dream thing.
What's your dream
There,
thing?
yeah. So the other side things are like I want to be able to like grow my own produce and like we moved to the suburbs so that we could start doing that and it's been awesome. And but my dream thing, the stuff I've been working on for a very long time is it's something called Mindstream. And it's a way to visualize our experience, basically. So the same way we have a visual language for like architectural blueprints or for musical notation, and you can give that to any musician and they know exactly how to play that piece of music. If I wanted to tell you how to build the Empire State Building, I wouldn't draw a picture, write an essay. I would give you architectural blueprints, and then someone could build that. We
Mm.
don't have anything like that in spirituality or mental health, and it kind of goes back to that like very esoteric idea where you kind of find someone who's talking about it in a way that sort of resonates with you. But if you were telling me like, um, like focus in deeply and like shine like love on yourself, on your inner child, and place your attention like on your heart space. Like I have no idea what you're talking about. I
Yeah.
don't know how to like I don't know how to do that inside me. If I've never been there before inside myself, I don't know where to find it.
Hmm.
But I do believe that there is something to what's being said, and that is a real thing. It's just the way that we're communicating it isn't the right medium. There isn't a powerful enough medium. Whereas if we were doing yoga and you said get into, tree pose and you stand there, I can see what you're doing and I can do the exact same thing. And you can come over and move my arm and, get me in that pose, but you can't do that when you're telling me how to like move my attention in a specific way.
Mm.
And so I've been working on, I had this idea like years ago, kind of looking at my own social anxiety and trying to figure out what it was, where I just started like seeing how it all fit together. And so it's a visual framework to depict thoughts, emotions, attention, intention, awareness, and how they all fit together. And then being able to
Mm.
like a simulator or a graphical user interface, being able to like move your attention and zoom into a thought and
Hmm.
it becomes clear and you can see the texture to it and the feelings and the how dark it is, how far it is, how close it is, all these visual metaphors we use to describe it, and then explore it and see what beliefs are underneath it, and explore those and build out kind of your whole mental universe and express to someone else how you're really feeling by showing them instead of just saying it.
It's like world building your mind
Yes,
digitally, I guess. Is that right?
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. It actually reminds me, I'm going to share this with you because I think you might lose everything on my desk as I grab it. Last year, I went to Oxford University for a week to take this astrology conference, basically. And I love that it's pretty much essentially open right to what I want. And there was a lecture by Matchaz Rejovic, and I can send you his
Yeah,
actual
please
details.
do.
Matjaz, but the Z has like a little V on top of it, and then REGOVEC for anyone listening. I do have his email address. Did I write it in the little notebook I'm looking in? I don't think so, but I am on his email list. So he did this lecture. He kind of looks a bit like Anthony Hopkins, I think. Anyway, he did this lecture that's irrelevant, but anyway, called Symptoms as Symbols. And he was, it's very symbolic. It is very kind of, what's that, like Jungian kind of vibes, right? It was a bit of an out there one to get your head around. And he created this concept of the four different things that make us up. There's the thinking mind, the psychic mind, the bodily mind, and the intuitive mind, and how he believes symptoms, and symptoms are things like a symptom of loneliness, right? That would be a symptom in our experience, right? So this is less about like physical illness and more about like a symptom of things like loneliness or other ways that we might express things that we deem as, I guess, negative in our experience, and how they all connect or try and reconnect to our mind. So it was this really analytical way of trying to display almost like what you're describing, and he'd drawn this like image of how they all connect in. So I think you would probably, and it linked in with astrology as well, because he linked all of the like the heart with different parts of the zodiac and stuff. It's very fascinating. One of those ones where you sit there going, I know I'm only grasping like a tenth of what he's trying to tell me. And he's written this big book and the Latin words. And I was just like, wow, this is great, but also wow. So I think that sounds really sort of similar, like trying to map it out, right? Trying to map out what is going on inside of us and how do we get there and why did we get there? And yeah, I love that idea of trying to explain it to other people. That's a great dream. What a wonderful dream. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel like
so letting me.
That's wonderful. And to use like this like creative outlet as well as your like method to getting there, which honestly, in my opinion, with the tarot is a really great way. For me, it's a language, and so is astrology. Like astrology, I can pull it up and show any astrologer, they'll know exactly any birth chart, like, oh yes, I understand what this person is or what they might be going through or what's happening here, right? So it's kind of like doing that, but for everybody, making that super accessible and really personal. So that's really cool. So wonderful.
I think that's kind of why I took to tarot and found it so fascinating, was because it was a framework. The further in you went, the more there was to explore. And then it's chopped up into 72 bits that all like represent something slightly different. It all fits together and it's really beautiful and timeless. And I think like with that with the Anthony Hopkins looking orator, I think the tough thing is like so many of these really important, interesting ideas just like go over our heads or like take a long time to learn. And so I think this feels like in line with the Mindstream stuff, this deck, where it's just how can you make it accessible and like intuitive and easy? Because the information is already out there. Like I'm not inventing anything new. It's using, Buddhism and psychology and whatever else, but it's just putting it away where people can interact with it and get it.
Yeah, definitely. Like the tarot, I think because it's a visual tool, definitely helps as well. And so I've got two young kids. One's just turned 4 and one's 7. And the amount of times I pull out my cards when they're struggling to tell me what's going on, I'm like, all right, you pick out of these which one feels like you right now. And I've too many decks. I'm not gonna put way too many decks, but I've got some really great kid friendly ones, right? But sometimes when they're really not feeling good, they'll go out for they'll pick one of my really intense ones. I'm like, you sure you want to look through that one, sweetheart? And they'll, picking out the really dark cards, like, wow, okay, you're really going through it, So it's really great to have these like visual representations as well of life, which I think is kind of what it gets at. And to be able to do that in a more in-depth way would be brilliant. So yeah, this would definitely work in with what that dream is. I love it.
That's fascinating though. I've never heard anyone do that, and it makes a lot of sense. And it's so much better than like what I see them in school. I've like done some research on this, and like they're just like happy face, sad face, angry face. Like that's not versus like you can feel the artwork, like it
Yeah,
has a vibe. And it
absolutely.
has content also, like specific to situations and stuff. So that's
Yeah.
brilliant. That's a
Yeah.
great
And
idea.
so I have this like little box of, we had it in our like calm down corner. It's kind of you're not feeling good. Open this box. This might have some tools in there. And there's, like the little fidget toys and like a balloon you can blow up or a little like things to help with deep breathing. But there's also an oracle deck in there. And most of the time when my daughter goes to that box, she says the oracle deck is the thing that helps her the most because suddenly she's using, fine motor skills to shuffle it and spread it out and, even getting the cards out of the box. It sort of switches the brain a little bit. And then you go into this, I don't know, just this other place when you're choosing and then looking at it and she's trying to figure out what the meaning is. And like, it's just such a great tool to have in there. And it's just a
Yeah.
little moon oracle one and she absolutely loves it, so that's been really helpful. But it gives this like little visual language and she doesn't have to know what the words are, she doesn't have to know what any of it means. She can see from the body language or the colors or just the overall, as you said, vibe of a card as to what that might be portraying. So just gives a bit more language. And then when you feel understood, someone goes, oh, you feel like this, like, yeah, it just opens up again and makes it a bit easier. So
Yeah. Do you
my
think
parenting
for
tip out
her,
there.
yeah, no, that's a great tip. Do you think for her it is that like she wants to express herself and doesn't have the means and it's a way
Mm.
to like start that conversation, or is it just like seeing it reflected back to her is like, oh, that's how I feel?
Well, I think both because she's not always coming to me and showing me what it is. So sometimes
Got it.
it's just a personal thing, and afterwards I'll say, "Oh, what do you think was the thing that helped you move through that?" And she'll say, the Oracle deck. So sometimes it's just a personal thing. Sometimes she'll come up with three cards and looking at me like, "What do they mean? Tell me what they mean." you know.
Yeah.
And that's when she's, I guess, wanting more of that back and forth. But a lot of time with younger kids, when an emotion's really strong, it's it's overwhelming and you can't really get through that or express how you feel because you don't have the language a lot of the time. So we pair that. We've also got like emotion wheels up on the wall, and there's like a little kid one, which is, like angry, sad, calm, surprised, scared. Like it's just sort of the basics. And then we've
Mhm.
got the older kid one, which, to be very fair, has been so helpful for me and my husband as well. Because sometimes when you're like, I'm so mad, like you might have the word angry, but you're like, oh, what, like, I want to express something. So you look and you're like, am I feeling betrayed, jealous, annoyed, frustrated? Like that gives you so much more context as to what's actually going on. So, I mean, it helps us when we're like, feeling emotions, right? Which everybody does.
Yeah.
And then we can like knuckle down on it. So I think those sorts of like little tools that you can go to depending on where you're at in the emotion wheel or in the overwhelmed state or whatever's happening can be really, really helpful. So yeah, visual representation, having the wheel there, having something that the tactile, like I talked about this with Erica on one episode where we said tarot is a tool, like an oven mitt for ADHD. And she says oven mitt is like you use an oven mitt so you don't burn yourself on the oven. So tarot can be a tool for ADHD in that same way, where you're not going to burn yourself on life because it's like a fidget. You can sit there and shuffle, right? And that's like
Yeah.
a fidget toy. It's tactile, it's a focus point. And yeah, when your brain gets all fuzzy, you can, or like overactive, you focus in on it and keep it there. She uses one, like she'll pull a card, like, okay, I really need to focus today. Let's say maybe I pull out, the King of Swords or the Queen of Swords or something. I put it right in front of my desk, and that reminds me when I look at it, oh yeah, I'm supposed to be focusing, right? Or put out one that's more creative, like I'm supposed to be doing my artwork. It's right there, a visual reminder. So there's so many ways we can use it outside of traditional fortune telling ways of using it. And I am curious as well. Do you play around with other tarot decks now that you're sort of like in this tarot creativity world?
A little bit. I will say people constantly ask me to give them readings with
Yeah.
my deck. Like a lot of family and friends have bought it, and so they're always asking for me to be the one to give a reading, and so I get kind of exhausted doing that.
Yeah.
Um, so I use other decks less.
Hmm.
Um, there's one that I really like called This Might Hurt. I believe that's what it's called.
I have seen that one. Yep. I don't have it, but I have
Uh,
seen it.
because it's also like it's got a more modern.
Hmm.
I don't know. I resonate with the feel of it.
Yeah,
Um, I like that one, but mostly I end up doing readings with mine so often that I don't do too many others.
that's totally fair. I have so many, but I guess that is part of my job. And there's so many that call to different people or different scenarios and that sort of a thing. So yeah, I love having lots, but there's so many people that like I can't cheat on my deck. Like I have one and that's
Yeah,
it.
I mean I still have a lot of them. I just when I don't use them too much these days, but I had
Mhm.
before. Yeah.
Wonderful. All right. So you've got a website, right? You said you've got a blog. Can you let everyone know where they can find you and where they can purchase this deck?
Totally, yeah. So, millennialtarot.com.
So
Millennial has
easy.
two L's and two N's, which I find is people struggle to spell it. So
Mhm.
millennialtarot.com, you can buy it there. There's a blog there also. Um, and yeah, and if you are going to buy it, buying there is awesome because the creator gets a lot more compared to Amazon and wherever else
Mhm.
I've come to learn.
Mhm.
And then Instagram is the main place I am. I have a TikTok, but I've really done nothing with it. But Instagram at Millennial Tarot. Um, just yeah, one word, no underscore or anything.
Perfect. And if anyone wants to check out the deck, I've got an unboxing video over on my YouTube channel. So you can have a look. I do a full flip through of all the cards. You can see if it feels right for you before purchase. And yeah, thank you so much, Scott, for chatting with me today. It has been a blast.
Yeah,
I love this deck. It is really fun. I've had a really good time with it. So thank you for creating it.
thank you for having me. And yeah, I hope you continue to enjoy it.
Thank you.
Let me know if you have any standout readings, let me know.
I'll let you know. Awesome. And I didn't ask, when is the potential Gen
Gen Z.
Z one proposed to
Yeah,
come out to the
so
world?
this coming October.
Oh, okay.
So
Wonderful.
a little bit of a wait. Millennial Terror last October, Gen Z this coming October.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, we'll keep an eye out for that one as well. All right.
Cool.
Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we will catch you next time.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
All right, darling. What did you think of that? Did you notice which point was the controversial one? I'm presuming you picked up that it was about AI artwork. If you didn't, that's what it was. Now, when I asked Scott about whether he was the artist, I truly had no idea that AI was used in the artwork. It didn't have, or it doesn't have, what I usually see as almost like this hyper realism in a lot of AI stuff now. Now, I don't know when he did that, if it was before we knew about the detrimental environmental effects or the copyright issues or any of that. I'm not sure. I'm going to give benefit of the doubt in this case and treat it as a special case in a way, because I'd already fallen in love with the deck. I do think he's put a lot of work into it as well. But generally, I'm a blanket zero AI decks person, right? Like, I'm usually pretty black and white on that. And this had to challenge me on that black and white thought process. So it may have to be a case by case basis, possibly. Now, on that topic, just briefly, that's not what this episode is about. There is a book that's just come out called Magical Grimoire AI, or Magical AI Grimoire. The way it's written on the cover, I can't tell which way you're supposed to say the title. But it's one that I'm quite curious about because I have, as I said, had this very black and white view around AI. I don't like it, don't want to like it. I think it has a lot of negative aspects, especially in the world of writing and artwork. However, I can see it being useful in other ways, and I'm curious about that. And I would like to try and keep an open mind about people who are using it differently or attempting to use it ethically, that kind of a thing. So I'm trying to reach out to that author and get them on the podcast. So stay tuned for possibly more on that topic. Again, please don't cancel me over just being open-minded around AI. I want to learn more, and then maybe we can decide if it's the bane of everything or if there's some potential to it, because I don't unfortunately think it's going away. And that book is around using it magically. Sometimes I think witchcraft in itself is controversial, and we wouldn't be witches if we didn't dip into and explore controversy sometimes. So that's my PSA around AI and AI artwork and AI decks. Last little update is I spoke about how Santa got my daughter a Tamagotchi, which she rejected. That has changed. So Santa might have just jumped the gun a little bit, because she's almost 8 now, and this is the most loved item. She cares for it like her baby. She drops it off with me for babysitting whilst she's at school. Like, it has grown on her. So millennial parents, don't shy away from telling Santa about Tamagotchis, because if they're sort of around 8 to 10, I think it can be a potentially good present that isn't connected to the internet. Now, next week, my darlings, we are doing a Hana Help Me episode around deck modifications. So that's going to be a really, really interesting one, and I hope you join me for that as well. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day wherever you are in the world today, and I'll chat with you next time. Have you been searching for a safe space to connect with other witches and grow and develop and learn together? The Suburban Witches Society will bring you knowledge and friendships that are spiritually aligned, plus a whole heap of fun. You will get access to our private community Facebook group and group chat, which that chat pops off. There are monthly group calls, you get a reading with me, you can do Q&A, and we all just chat and hang out together. It's like a slumber party. You are welcome to wear your pajamas. This is not like fancy influencer witches on a Zoom call. We are very real over here. You can take a peek at behind the scenes episodes of the podcast that are uncut, and you get access to them before anybody else. There's a resources section where you get PDF downloads, you get access to classes that are not available to the public. Here is what one of our members, Brandy, has to say about her experience in the Suburban Witches Society. Signing up to the society has been the best present to myself. My witchy knowledge has exploded, and I've forged some of the deepest friendships in this group. So come and join Brandy and everyone else in the Suburban Witches Society, meet your new witchy best friend, and get a little bit closer access to yours truly as well. I hope to see you there.